So I'd like to call the September 8th meeting to order at 7:05. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have approval of the agenda. We do not have any changes tonight, so we're good to go. Let's do the approval of minutes. So I will entertain a motion to approve the August 23rd minutes.
Jacob.
Are we raising our hands now that we're
Yeah,
live?
how
I'm
does
sorry.
this work?
Procedurally, I apologize.
No problem, because you guys, it was easier last time too, because I only had a couple of you guys in here and everyone was remote. So, yeah, I guess you could kind of just raise your, because the owl won't pick you up until you talk.
Okay,
So if you raise your hand and say motion, then the second person can raise and do that.
well, I haven't loaded up my agendas yet, but I know in the minutes it reflected that I was in the executive session and I was not.
Okay.
There was an error in the minutes.
Someone will need to make that motion first, though, right?
Yes.
I will, okay. So,
Do you want to make the motion?
sure, Jacob Murray, I move to approve the August 23rd, 2021 meeting minutes. Can I make the amendment right now, or?
Yeah,
In the motion.
Yeah, with the amendment to reflect that Sophia Schock was not present at that meeting.
Would you ready to call? I'll second.
any other discussion? Rini, are you good, or is your hand just up to as it was before? Oh, you're muted, honey.
I was just trying to get to the top like we were before, so I'll lower my hand.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so being that there is no other changes, we will do a roll call vote. So I'll start over here. Sophia,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Madhu,
Aye.
Griffin,
Aye.
Lord, aye, Tony,
Aye.
Rini,
Aye.
aye as well. Therefore, with the change of the executive session to reflect that Sophia was not there, are approved. Next up, we'll go to public participation. At this time, I would invite the public to raise their hands, and you'll have 2 minutes, which Dr. Willett will put up the timer. And it's a nice visual for anyone to come on. And that way you will know when your 2 minutes are up. And we will have points of information that the board members can speak to it, and we will go from there. So at this time, if any members of the public would like to speak, please raise your hand since everybody is. Oh, we do have guests. No. Okay, well, we are good. So Dr. Willett, you are saved with the timer.
Bing is really letting you down.
Not quite this time.
Well, we're
Maybe
good for
do the
this.
first one manually while I mess with this. if there's
Well,
any-
we don't have any.
Oh, we don't. so we
No
can-
one, that's what I'm saying. You are saved by the
That's what
timer.
that-
So therefore, we'll move on to correspondence. Tony,
Yes, ma'am.
if you could do for the past meeting and this one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we received an email offering information on equity in education. Email requesting that schools keep students in masks. Email thanking the board and superintendent for being understanding and communicating. The reader is equally frustrated by recent mandates from the governor. An email offering proof that Wi-Fi and electromagnetic fields from the power lines are harming our children. Email requesting that masks be optional. Email requesting that the board stand for freedom and allow masks to be a choice. Email asking if Tolland was going to offer remote learning. Email expressing great concern as to how students will be kept safe in the upcoming school year. Email from a physician offering information on the criticality of masks. Email requesting mandatory masking on behalf of 64 residents. Email stating that masks should be required in school. Email asking for information on why the meet and greets were scheduled as such. Email offering information on how to respond to the effects of the pandemic on our children. Email concerning the posting of committee meetings on select Facebook pages. Email asking which board members signed the letter to the EHHD. Email asking about the upcoming school calendar. Email offering a video on the perils of children and mask mandates. And an email offering a video as to why our food should all be organic.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Madam Chair.
At this point, I will open it up for any of the points of information for board members. We will go through that. If there was anything anyone wanted to say? I mean, today was the first day of school. Everyone looks so excited. I guess nobody was March, but I'm really.
Yeah, I do want to make the petition that we not have a board meeting on the first day of school.
I know. I wasn't on the board at that time. I was on maternity leave, so I'm blaming all of you.
Actually, I think the calendar wasn't set till after.
I was not here.
The board meeting person.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, so no, absolutely, like you're saying, today was the first day of school. And that I dropped my kindergartner off for her very first day of kindergarten school. And as soon as we parked, there is the principal right out front. I mean, absolutely just a ball of energy and excitement. And I'm sitting there thinking, if anybody should be a poster boy for elementary schools and the excitement that's going on, it was him. It was absolutely amazing. And Tori was just so excited. I want to go say hi. So I want to offer my appreciation to the entire school, but with Mr. Swanson in particular, for making sure that she was just thrilled to be there.
I mean, the calls that he gives, this is Tom Swanson.
Oh, yeah.
I will say along those lines, I will say our SRO at the high school was just super welcoming, just also full of energy. And it was
Refreshing.
It was, it really was. It made it a lot easier for my job to get out of the car this morning.
You dropped off at the high school this
I
morning?
dropped off. Apparently, I'm cool enough to still do that.
Perfect. Jacob?
Yeah, one quick thing, just looking at all the pictures of the kids going to Birch Grove and seeing that brand new school opening on time as scheduled was just really great to see. And I can't wait to see it up at the grand opening up in a couple of weeks. So.
No, it was fantastic. I have to say, I was looking at your pictures because
Oh.
No,
it was
it's
going in.
fun.
And so it was
Yeah.
great. I mean, I think honestly, besides the bus ordeal, which we already discussed, it really was a great day for all the students to come back and, just get into the swing of things, and even the meet and greets. That was a little hairy with the bus, with trying to park. I snagged the last parking spot over here. Truck down the girls, but it was good.
And that on the bus thing, and I'm being the parent again of a kindergarten, maybe a little bit paranoid. I'll bet I called the school a half dozen times, and the lady that answered the phone was just absolutely calm and polite and explained everything. And I get off the phone just feeling that, she did an amazing job of talking me off the ledge each time.
I'm sure.
She's very good at her.
You were not the only parent.
She's like, the buses are here. Your child is fine. Okay.
So all in all, everyone had a great day with their kids and we're moving on. So that is fantastic. And another year, it's going to be great. Just we'll see how this pandemic goes, but it's good for them to be in school right now.
They're in school.
They're in school. That's what I'm saying.
That's half the battle.
That is half the battle. I do not see that our student representatives are here, Emily or Nathalie. Did I miss them at all? If you are here, if you could raise your hand. I'm going to search for them again. No. I mean, given that it is the first day of school, I don't blame them for not appearing today. They're probably already sleeping.
Or doing homework.
Homework already. This is true. So let's move on to the superintendent's report for the athletic supervisor.
So we have a wonderful thing to report today as the first item. As you recall, we did have the athletic supervisor interviews, and of course, most of you were a part of that. And so we did select Tim McCluskey as the athletic supervisor. He is here tonight so we can celebrate his appointment. And normally there would be a lot more people in the audience. It is what it is with the hybrid. but rest assured that you are on TV for the entire world to see. So, I just want to say he is such a fantastic individual to have coming to Tolland. And as you know, and as the board members know from the interview process, a very distinguished professional. He has a lot of experience, has done a lot of work with social emotional learning and athletics, really sensitive to all the issues today that students have and face and the communities have and face. And he's been doing this for many, many years. So we're very fortunate to have been able to hire Mr. McCluskey and have him come to Tolland. So it's unfortunately the loss of the district he comes from, but it's certainly our gain. And I just wanted to officially welcome Mr. McCluskey to the Tolland Public School team and to officially introduce him to the community through this wonderful Zoom technology. So I'm just going to shake your hand, and then if you wanted to come up and say
I was
some
gonna say,
words.
if you get close to the owl, it will pick you up.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
So if you talk into the
Sure.
owl.
I think I remember the owl from the last time.
Yeah.
And I'll try and talk loud enough for it to look this way, but I just want to thank everyone for this opportunity. I am really excited to get started here in Tolland, and it's a little hybrid for the next week or so, but everyone I've met so far has been extremely helpful, and the teams are out there doing a great job. So I'm really look forward to day one, hitting the ground running and working very closely with all of you to make sure we move Tolland athletics to that next step. So again, thank you very much, and I'm very excited to be here.
Welcome, welcome,
Yeah,
welcome. Thank you very much. I'm very excited.
Yeah, Mr. McCluskey, you don't have to stay for the whole thing.
I stay around for like-
Stay for a few
stay around for like
minutes,
time.
it's not,
Okay.
yeah.
There are a few things I think that's okay.
Of course.
The policies are exciting.
Oh, boy. Buckle in. Okay, let's go to policy 1010.
Okay, so the first policy on the docket here is policy 1010. I'm pulling up the screen so everybody at home should be able to see it. Let's see. Is it the right one? Yes. So the executive summary ultimately here is, and just as a short explanation, we are updating these as per the S&G updates or Shipman and Goodwin updates they provide to school districts. There's also elements of these policies that are specific to the Tolland Public Schools. So where that's the case, they are adjusted accordingly, but always in coordination with the lawyers at Shipman and Goodwin whenever we do have to make a tweak. So if you take a look at the item and you scroll down a bit from it, it has the strikeouts in, if you can't see color, sometimes at home people won't be able to see the color, but the strikeouts are in yellow or strike, and the italicized is the ads or in blue. So as you go through it, essentially it's simply updating this policy so that it is accurate to how we do use of building and how we process forms for the district of Tolland. So essentially that's in short, the short version of it. I could read everything word for word here, but it'd probably be better if you just take a look.
Yeah, I
if you
have a
any
question on
questions.
this. The technology and AV personnel, that is actually green on my printout. Like I didn't know.
No, that's a good question. Thank you. Green, basically it's italicized too, or should be.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's green because it is an ad that wasn't specific to the Shipman and Goodwin policy,
Okay,
but it is specific to Tolland. So we do assign AV staff to building use. And that's primarily because in the past, when people have come in to use the equipment, we have soundboards that are thousands and thousands of dollars. And people using those soundboards, if you don't do it correctly, you will blow up the speakers, blow up the sound system, cost a lot of money. So we assign an AV person mandatorily to certain events when they come into the district, just like we would assign a custodian.
yeah, I was just wondering about that.
But the green, and thank you for asking, you'll see that throughout,
Yeah.
as that means symbolizes an ad that is
Just for
slightly beyond,
Tolland.
that is specific to Tolland. Yeah.
Thank you guys, because when I was reviewing it, I'm like, why don't some, like the yellow and the blue?
And
Perfect.
the yellow and the blue makes it easy for you to see at home. If you don't see the color, it's the italicized and the strikeout. Italicized is add, strikeout is
You'll be able, because I'm on Zoom right now.
take it
It's
out.
perfect. To see it perfectly.
Yeah.
So, at this question, any board
Yeah.
members?
just something to add, you know, as Dr. Willett said there, what we're trying to do, you know, we're going through a series of these updates. Shipman and Goodwin put out a list of policy recommendations and changes, not all having to do with COVID, but all influenced by putting policies in the correct place. And it gave us the opportunity to really look through some of the policies that haven't been touched in a while and bring them around to how we do it in Tolland and in line with both of those. The colors and the italicized that Dr. Willett put there was an attempt to give all that information to you guys very quickly so that you could look through, you could see the changes, you could know why those changes were there, and then kind of formulate your thoughts based on that.
No, I think it was very helpful. I mean, I definitely liked the way that it was visually. There was definitely one of these that I didn't see anything, so I was kind of confused.
But again, these are all first reads. So you'll have the opportunity to ponder and to think about it. for the
Well, let's go
second
to
read.
Thanks to
reading.
Mr. Holt for being such a fastidious and dedicated human being to the forwarding of policy in the town of Tolland and the school system of Tolland. So thank you for your continued service.
This is a record, how many policies we're looking at in one night.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's go to poor Rini over here. She's got her hand up and she's like, I'm ready to jump in.
I'm not sure if this is the right policy. There was one that had a fees schedule, and I just had wondered if that had been updated. It looked, there's no blue or anything, and I just thought, well, maybe we should be thinking about updating some of the fees.
Yeah, and that part is like an articulation of it that we can update as time goes on, but that was fairly recently updated, and those are hourly rates.
Okay, so yeah, I was just a question again, and there's no date, as it seemed like the policy hasn't been updated for a long time, so it's unclear if the fee schedule had been updated.
Yeah, that fee schedule was part of I think a regulation before that was at one point, but anyway, that we can do that at any time too. Right now, when I did run that through certain people, they felt that those fees were still pretty good for where we.
Well, how old are they? Just out of curiosity, like when were they last updated within the policy?
Did
Do you
change
know?
Yeah, they were updated a few years ago when we updated our forms.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So it would be nice to know. So if we can just kind of get that date, I think that would be helpful. So we know the date of fees.
Yeah, no, that was a question I had actually asked during policy committee as well. It's like, at first I thought it was like flat rate. I was like,
Yeah.
this is a deal.
Just like, that's it.
It's like, I just read.
Sophia?
I have two suggestions to add in, let's see, C, restrictions, number 6. I would even suggest adding energy drinks, because I know energy drinks can be dangerous to student population, and sometimes students have the propensity to abuse them. Again, just a suggestion. And the other suggestion I would say is, under fees, I would also add a sentence saying the schedule is subject to change per the school system. You never know. What if something happens and our insurance goes up? What if, so like, subject to change.
I agree.
Love it. I think that also, that will cover us.
Yeah.
Going forward. I like that. Okay, so with that, and then you have the energy drink. How does everyone feel about energy drinks?
I'm sorry, was this under restrictions on use of school facilities? So C6,
C6.
so about the advertising?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps Dr. Willett could speak on it, if it is a good idea or relevant or not. I don't know. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think that it is at the behest of the board, whatever the board is feeling strongly about, we could. The tobacco, alcohol, things like that are things that use of drugs are clearly prohibited. Energy drinks are a wide range of things. That would be the only thing I would say. So they don't always define those as Red Bull or
Gotcha.
even some of it. Sometimes it's that green tea thing and it's,
Monster.
Yeah, it can be a series of things that it would be very wide in its expanse. So it's up to the board if that's what we want to do.
I personally think it should just be left to controlled substances, you know, I mean, yeah, because like, I mean, in one retrospect, you could sit there and say coffee is an energy drink.
Oh, yeah, so we're not putting that in.
I understand.
You know what I'm suggesting.
I-
Yeah, I
understand. Yeah.
Master would have you.
But this is specifically advertising. Oh,
Jacob?
Yeah, I'd agree that that would need to be more precisely defined if we were to put it in. I mean, it's not, like, if it was in there, I wouldn't vote against it just on that one line, but I could feel more comfortable with a more precise definition for what actually constitutes an energy drink.
Anything else?
well, do we advertise any energy drinks? Like I'm trying to remember. Do we put up any posters or anything
I
like
mean, I can
that?
see, so for instance, when, forgive me for this, I apologize in advance. When Hot Shell Ray came to the middle school, because some middle school principal, got Hot
You
Shell
were
Ray.
so
And
cool.
that was
That was a
actually
big
me, though.
deal.
That was given to other people, they
Oh,
thought.
I gotta look
They
this
would
up.
have,
What is
their
this?
staging and everything, when they were setting up, would have emblems. Now, they wouldn't have alcohol, but I could see them having Monster or green
Gotcha.
tea or whatever. So that's what would happen is we don't explicitly advertise, but the people coming in might have something on their equipment or on their stuff. And so I mean, clearly, if they come in with Budweiser, we can say, no way, because that's controlled substance. But if they come in with, some variant of an energy drink and it was on their speakers or something, and we told them we had to get rid of it, then they would either have to cover it up or do something with that. So it's just, that's the kind of thing that I could see it coming up. I'm not saying that's not a good idea, though. It's just, that's how that would come up, would be something like that probably. And they do pay to come, a lot of the dance troops, and a lot of the dance troops do have some kind of sponsor.
Sponsor. Yeah, so I would say that probably it's a good thought logic, but probably best not to.
I do like to be subject to change for the fee schedule though.
Yes.
Things that.
That was gonna be my next topic there for the subject to change. Anybody else have any feelings about that, to add those in?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wrote your little note down,
Oh, yeah.
because I expect that to be changed. Okay, any other questions or comments on these?
That hot shell rate thing really brought me back because I went to school.
I don't even know how I remembered that, because I did very.
I'm
well
actually
remember.
really impressed that you did. I don't think I would have come up with
I
that.
don't know.
I remember that.
But there was something back then. As I keep looking at this too, I think that is the regulation though. That's why it can be changed fairly frequently. So we added that, huh?
Dana's
Oh,
in the living
Dana,
room.
yeah, Dana, thank you.
See, she's missing the hot shot Ray talk.
So that's why this has been updated without the policy being updated. The reason why it can be updated without the policy being updated is that it is a regulate, that part's a regulation.
Okay.
And that's why it can be done easily.
Right.
A regulation is just at his discretion based on the policy.
It's designed so that we can update it as needed.
As needed.
Yeah.
So it already kind of has a subject to.
Right, but it would be helpful to just have the date of when it was last updated, just somewhere in there.
Yeah,
He'll get
that
that.
makes sense, absolutely.
Okay, so I think we're good with this one. Can we move on to the 1020 policy?
Of course. So, and I'll blow it up for people at home.
Well, this one was a long one, wasn't it?
It
One of
is,
these were.
This one has this one isn't bad.
No, this one wasn't that.
Oh, wow.
There's one that has a lot of definitions. in it.
Kind of nice.
Jumping around a little bit.
Okay,
Okay, so this one is policy 1020. Policy 1020, again, using the same kind of methodology of the blue is the add, the yellow strikeout, green. These are for your first read, so although the proposed motion is there, obviously you don't have to do that right now. This is simply updating the language again to S&G's language with respect to, in this example, a peace officer. S&G now defines peace officer differently. So essentially the block had nuances to it. And I just took the whole new block and put it in there to replace the old block. you know, to do justice to the nuances that they have added to it. And, sorry, I've got a little bit of a lag here as I try to scroll down.
Yeah, because I think this one just had, like you said, primarily that, and it was just the new
And then it's just basically legal updates. The green is one that they were missing that ours does reference, so that's also in there.
Okay. But this time, any board members have any questions on this one?
That's all under policy.
Okay. I'm just looking over it to see.
Okay.
We're good to go. Let's move on to the 50/40.
You regretting your decision to stay yet?
No, actually, it's good to know this.
I like it.
He has called Matthew. All right, so the next one is 50/40 transportation. 50/40 transportation, once again, is updated according to the S&G policy accordingly. And so you'll see certain strikeouts. There are certain things that, again, we have in our policy that we're also vetted with S&G. And there's some fixing of the language to match. So for instance, hazardous conditions is how it's defined in the lower part of the policy. So it's not by, you know, hazardous guidelines. It's defined by the conditions themselves without that extra terminology. We added over the years the green language. So it actually, the green language is an add that makes it consistent with the health and safety protocols of COVID and other things. So that's why that's added. It's not strictly in there, but it's a good thing to have. And then the rest of it is just an updating to the policy that Shipman has. And I'm sorry, this is Johnson.
Well, that one I think was just that page that we had, and the rest of it was fine.
Yeah, trying to get down.
No, there was nothing else. That changed.
No, I'm trying to get to the next.
Oh, well, we have to discuss this.
I know, I'm just prepared.
Any board members have any questions? Go ahead, Griffin.
I'm just curious, the Roman numeral 3, the provision of transportation, do we really require our kindergartners who live within a mile? Do we not provide transportation to them, or that the mile and the up to 2 miles seem like an awful lot?
That is how it's set up.
And that is, do we, okay.
And that is not a unique.
Anyone else? Any hands?
Just did this one, didn't we recently?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a.
Yeah.
Recent on that.
but this one showed up on Shipman and Goodwin's list because of that line that essentially says, in addition to the rules, if you're using our transportation, you have to adhere by the health guidelines as well.
It's kind of a COVID update, but without saying it explicitly.
Well, then it still covers you.
Great.
Okay, let's move on to, now this is one, the Title IX one. This one is.
So,
Do we do- I'm sorry.
No, first readers.
First readings.
These are all first
I'm
reads.
sorry.
No, thank you
First
for
reads, and then we can still review it, and if we have any other questions or anything, we can, before we vote on it next time.
Thank you.
I believe this is the one that had.
So the reason why you don't see strikeouts, Title IX was completely redone by the state of Connecticut with the new presidential, and also with the new presidential administration. There were new guidelines entirely. So the entire, what we had before had to be entirely replaced. This is a complete replacement of the previous language. And that's because I think in one of the meetings, one of the subcommittees, I introduced you to the PowerPoint, Shipman and Goodwin
You did that.
has it put out, and it's an extreme replacement. So it's just basically a completely different methodology that has to be followed, which is why this is boilerplate to Shipman's replacement of the whole thing. It's like swapping
I was
out the
wondering,
engine.
I was like, I don't see any changes. I don't, what's happening?
Right.
So that makes sense.
Just on blue paper.
It would be the whole blue paper.
That's it. Everything is pretty much just, rather than, it would be an incredibly long document to do the strikes and add.
Yeah, no, that's completely fine, but I was just wondering, because, I was kind of honing in on what we had for strike and strike out, so I'm sure I'm not the only one. And then when you're looking at all this, you're like, whoa,
And
okay.
if you take a look at it, it is both policy 4060 and 5070.
Two of them, yeah, I saw that. Okay, so
They're
let's
part
go
of that
to board
entire-
members for questions, so, Laura?
Not so much questions, I don't remember if you shared that Shipman presentation with the whole board, or if it was just policy.
I think it was policy, but I
Okay.
think it's
Can we
up
put it
there.
on the
in that-
dashboard?
If it's on the
it's
dashboard, it was just a good reference.
It's on the
to
dashboard, but I
see
think
what
it's in the
changes
policy
were
folder.
And kind of bring it back to a,
Because that's what, that
I wouldn't say dumb it
presentation,
down, but.
the presentation did a great job of lining up the bullet points and then how they aligned in here.
On here.
Because I know in the policy, we had that same conversation about, okay, show us where this came from. And so Dr. Will was kind enough to go through that quickly. It's a very long presentation, but then let us look and bounce it back and forth. So it is on the bulletin, the board. He
Well, for
sent out a
those who
link.
are not in policy, we have some homework. So, if we could.
If I recall correctly, it took up a bulk of the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a long,
Okay, so it might have to be split up a few nights, but we'll get it done. Let's go to Dana.
I'm sorry, I did not have a question. I just wanted to raise my hand to say I joined the meeting at 7:30 and I apologize for my tardiness, everybody. But thank you.
Okay, so this one is quite a large one. So,
yeah.
those who are not in policy, I would say that sounds like that's gonna be our homework on the dashboard policy folder. We can review and then see if we have more questions about this.
And the only other caveat on Title IX is like Title IX.
So you can't really even change it then? Is that what you're essentially saying? Is
Like
this
we
is-
wouldn't want to mess with the language.
So this is exactly like, Jessica says here it is, this is what it is.
That is exactly what.
This is more for our perusal than
Yeah,
anything
you'll
else.
notice there's no green.
No.
Messing with the language on that one.
Okay,
But I think when you review the PowerPoint,
I think it's
That'll
good
make
to
sense.
just have that information to just know,
right,
you know.
you'll look at it and see.
Are we
that
talking
this
like
might be
6 hours? Or like,
If you read quickly.
Get the
okay, good to
espresso.
know.
It's really just if you had any questions or, wanted to see. where
I think
something
it's really
comes
just
from.
good for information to
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
More
on a
FYI.
basis, I think.
I think
And
that's-
as Sophia's over there, she's like, well, I already know.
I figured.
Okay, so let's move on to 5080.
Yeah, schools.
It's 50,
Rolling.
5080.
Okay.
Rolling.
No, it says 5080.
Um,
Yeah.
Wait, this
everywhere.
is just like-
Yeah, just a date.
So,
Where does that say?
I'm gonna start talking to it, even though this thing is scrolling very slowly. So 5081 is, 5080 is student
Oh, I
discipline.
just was looking up.
So it should actually, I think, be 5081. One of those is.
Well,
one of
then
those
you
is off
have
by a
it,
number.
if it's policy,
It's 5080 is what it is.
because
student
that is
discipline.
what it says on the summary and on the actual.
Yeah, student discipline is still. it's not 58.
So it's 5080, but if you take a look at this one does have the same paradigm of the blue and the green. Again, this is essentially meant to update the language to Shipley and Goodwin's latest. It also does make modifications to things, general terms about expulsions, things like that. Updates the references to school and classroom, updates the references to, what we can consider with respect to, conduct off grounds. And again, how these link up. If you looked at the full language and you read the whole thing, you'll notice that it kind of builds to a crescendo of expectations with respect to what action can be taken. Ultimately discipline wise for just standard kind of suspensions and then expulsions. It also updates the language under active harassment on individual sex, sexual orientation, race, religion, disability, and now it goes to national alienage, ancestry, gender identity, marital status, age, pregnancy, veteran status. So it adds those to the language that didn't exist before. And also, when you look for electronic, the vaping and all that, it updates to articulate electronic nicotine delivery systems. They didn't exist before in prior. They weren't defined the same way, so it's updating the language to cover that and cover all the methods in which kids would be using the tobacco products or other products. Portable audio player, Walkman. Nobody knows what a Walkman is anymore. So now they've added portable audio player to cover everything that Apple might come up with, or the Zune. Remember the Zune?
No.
Oh, yeah, that was Microsoft's answer.
That
to
was
the
Microsoft trying to do it. That was also in the Guardians of the Galaxy
It
2.
was. The Walkman was too.
The Walkman was as well. So if you want to get both, a picture of both of the, any kids listening at home, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 had both. And then, it talks again about health and safety protocols. I can't get this to scroll fast enough, but that would be 34 as you go through the numbers there. Adding that comment about health and safety protocols is a nod to COVID. Engaging in 39, engaging in teen violence. It more specifically defines emotional, sexual abuse, stalking, harassing, threatening. So it's just adding articulation to some of the language. And from the standpoint of discretionary and mandatory expulsions, we had a language modification of grades 3 through 12.
Yeah, I had a
and
question
beyond,
about that.
because we have more than just grades 3 through 12.
Yes.
We have TTA, we have other groups that TALC and so on that are technically not necessarily always grades 3 through 12.
But it seems as though it had, a principal may consider recommendations of expulsion of a student in grades 3 to 12 and beyond, inclusive. Why does this start at grade 3?
Because you cannot expel the child that is pre-K to 2. It's against
Because I
the
was
law.
wondering about that, because I thought like if they, some of these, you read article and then you're like, well, how is it? So prior to 3rd grade, then it's a different
Cannot
protocol?
expel.
I was wondering, I had that.
There are certain exceptions that are very limited to that. And they are most extreme, like things, but you cannot generally expel, and the language is modified for those extreme circumstances.
Right, I was wondering about that. So
So that's, and if you look at that, actually it's covered down in, I can't scroll past it, but C, they'd have to actually possess a firearm,
yeah, I saw that, but then I saw the A,
and that's. page
and the A
11.
was that when I was reviewing it, I just thought it was strange for grades 3 that was started, so that was.
Yeah,
that popped
it's
out
a
at
good
me.
question, and that makes sense to ask. But then if you go to section C, page 11, there it talks about what you can do if they are in preschool or.
I just wasn't sure, so thank you for the clarification on that. Jacob?
Yes, I had a question. It appears up on page 88 of the packet. It's the section number. It's under hearing procedures, number 16. And it reads, except for a student who has been expelled based on possession of a firearm or deadly weapon, as described in subsection 4B1 and 2 above, the board may, in its discretion, shorten or waive the expulsion period. And I was just curious about that language, because I get, those are very extreme cases. And I would say that it would be pretty difficult to accidentally bring a gun to school. I feel like there's probably pretty willful intent there. But for deadly weapon, if a student, like, hypothetical situation, if a student accidentally brought like a knife to school from a camping trip, maybe they used the same bag and that was discovered, would they be facing an expulsion period that we could not amend? You understand what I'm trying to say
Yeah,
here.
there are mandatory
Yeah,
expulsion actions that the principal must then send to the superintendent must then execute. What it's talking about with discretion is, you know how you can do a stipulated agreement?
mhm,
Stipulated agreements do not take away the expulsion. They
Yeah.
simply have a probationary status for the student. The expulsion runs concurrent with the probationary status. So they're on probation during the term of the expulsion, but they're given an alternative program or they're allowed back into the population to finish out their program, so long as they meet certain conditions. And if they meet those conditions, they remain in a probationary status. If they violate any of those conditions, they are then put back into expulsionary status, at which point they are sent physically out of the district typically. When they're sent physically out of the district, the district pays for the outplacement. I mean, the district pays for education for every child anyway, you know, town, Tolland, the taxpayer, but this has occurred in the past in Arlington where, in Tolland, we place a student out in a program to fulfill the expulsion. Years ago, you used to be able to do a program of up to 10 hours a week with tutors. Now you must provide a program equivalent to the school program, the school day. So when you do a stipulated agreement, you have conditions there on probationary status.
Yeah.
that type of thing.
so you,
Another thing in this town is JRB.
mhm,
You can give the child the juvenile review board option, and they then participate with the town's juvenile review board. That's usually one of the conditions of a stipulated agreement.
okay, so that could be, that would still be an option under that language because they're still expelled. It's just a probationary period. Okay.
Right, the terminology, the expulsion is still something that
Uh-huh.
they're serving under. Other little piece of expulsion, if a student is expelled twice, like a second time, then the family may have to pay for whatever the outplacement is. But the first time, it's the district.
Okay, yeah, that makes me a bit more comfortable with that because I completely get the intent of that language. I was just a little concerned that you might have a situation where a kid makes an honest mistake like that and, you have a really draconian measure that you can't reverse in that policy, but
And
I
that
think
does
that's,
happen.
I think that's fair, yeah.
Yes, let's go to Rini.
Okay, it's funny you guys talked about the Walkman. I was wondering, are we not gonna delete that from the language? Because I don't think really anyone has that. And even if you just encompass it under, some kind of sound equipment. So I think that was on page 8, number 27. I'm not sure. That was my notes.
Yeah, the reason that's still in there is that S&G does not recommend we get rid of it, and there are children who grab their parents' Walkmans. Or
Okay.
Nobody does
Then
this.
my other question was on number 39.
They take
Come
the jean
on.
jacket, they take,
No one is
with the
buying.
Duran thing on it.
No one is
Come with the
No, no.
Run DMC and they bring the
I
Walkman.
know, right?
Run DMC.
They still hold up.
Remember the Aerosmith Run DMC video?
I do. I
Of
love it.
course. Of course.
But you'll see, and
See,
and there's
we
a
have a
couple
lot of
other
fun.
policies that we
There
haven't
you
got
go.
to yet. For shipment of women, they don't delete.
They just
add it.
add, so it's
So-
still
So
covered.
there's one where they say, that a student can't bring their pager. It is still in the policy, but it then adds a cell phone or it adds.
So it adds more
Like, they
layers.
never-
Okay, so anyway, I was thinking we should take that out if we're updating, but all right. Number 39, it said only 2 students. And I was wondering if, Walt, can you scroll down just one more page to get to 39? Because I'm trying to remember what I was talking about here. So it says, okay, I thought it said something about 2 students. Yeah, between 2 students. So I was wondering, do we want to have it be 2 students or could it be more than 2 students? Could it be 3 or 4, or could there be maybe we don't define how many students are involved? That was my question.
Well, I can ask S&G about that. I think that this is referring to teen dating. And that dating is usually going to be between 2 people. that's probably how this is being looked at, because it's engaging in teen dating violence. So you wouldn't typically have like three.
Well, that's us, maybe, and maybe things are different. So maybe to the degree that you don't define how many students are involved, I don't know. It was a question that I had.
My suspicion is that this relates back to like Title IX, in that they're defining it purposefully in this way because it links up with, their other policies on the matter.
But you could just almost just strike the two.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Just strike the two and that occurs between students. And that's it. It doesn't have to be two. It could just be between students and that was it.
Well, it's a reasonable thing. What I'll do is I'll call Shipman to ask if there was some reason why it had to be two.
Right. That was my only question. So thank you.
Okay, so Randy's good. Anyone else in the room? Oh, Sophia?
So I have two things. Number D2 under hearing procedure. I think it would be prudent to add that the recording can be done by electronic means.
D2 under which heading?
Here.
Hearing procedures.
What
Let me see
page,
what page. Would it be helpful to say page 17?
Oh, that would be much. Okay. D2.
What page are we on?
17.
17, okay.
86 if you're on.
Yes, okay, that's what I'm looking for.
D2.
You're scrolling back.
Okay, I'm sorry, which one?
D2, about the recording of the hearing, I just think it would be great to add
Executive session.
electronic recording.
Verbatim recording.
As the lovely lady to my right is electronically recording. Sure, there's no tape in here. It's just
Oh, my tape recording or my escape.
Yeah,
could add, by electronic.
I like
means.
that.
a tape recording or, okay, let me,
We're moving past the Walkman.
by electronic means,
I'm moving us
right?
forward here.
Right, electronic, I mean, you could just put electronic means, I mean.
It's nice having an attorney on the board. I like this.
Oh, it's fantastic. That's why I was just making sure, I'm like, Sophia, what do you have for me?
I don't know about the next one. I have one other question, and this one might be dicey like the energy drink, so you'll forgive me if it is. Tell me when are you with me, Dr. Willett?
I'm almost there. No,
Okay.
got it. Okay,
He's on the
got
Walkman.
it. Still on the walk.
What is that, the red shell guy or?
Hot shell red.
All right, I gotta Google this now.
Me too.
They clearly didn't really make it big, because nobody's heard of them since they played at Tolland Middle School.
Or if they did, that's when their career broke.
Yeah.
The peak.
Jacob's keeping them alive.
I'm sorry.
It's always fun with you guys.
Throughout this policy, when it talks about the student, it refers to the student as a minor. So it says, for example, in E stipulated agreements, this is page 89 of the whole packet or 20 in the policy. We look at that. It says, the second sentence says, such joint stipulation and recommendations to the board shall include language, including that the parents are legal guardians. This entire policy makes no provision if the child is 18 years old. Well, I guess would it be a child considered an adult? And how these agreements and these provisions relate to an adult child. I don't know if I missed it perhaps, and if this is a question for Shipman and Goodwin, but
Well, like in that example there, at the end of that paragraph, then says if the student is 18 years or older.
you're correct, but it's not consistent throughout the document. So I jumped to stipulated agreements, but I saw it in a few other spots. I could actually go through and find them all and give them to you if you want later.
So, what's missing that 18 years and older language.
In some
many other
spots,
areas. So
yeah.
I'll take that.
I think that's important to have in there because we do have the, actually extra schooling for, was it 22? 21? You know, so I do think that is a very important, you know, to think about, you know.
Well, because students have rights, right? So, and their rights have to be upheld through this procedure. So we have to make sure we're honoring the adult students' rights as well. So maybe it's a question for Shipman and Goodwin.
Yeah, I'll call them and ask them again, like,
I could be incorrect as well.
No, it's a
But I
good
think
point.
it's a good
Worth
thing
checking.
to check on, and then we're updating it, so we might as well update it properly. I like that. Anything else?
That's all I have for you.
Okay. Any other members have any other questions on this one? Looking around, I think everybody's looking pretty good. Okay. Okay, so where is my blue sheet? What do we have next? Let's move on to the school opening and COVID update. I'm gonna put my fancy clip back on this.
See if I can open up a separate tab here real quick.
Sure. See, you made a fun night of policy.
Isn't it exciting?
So just so people get a sense of, you know, where to find the kinds of things that I'm talking about. If you're looking at home, you should be seeing the website, incredibly slow moving mouse. So if you go to district and then the superintendent Willis page, the bulletins, so the last couple of bulletins highlighted kind of the condition of the opening of the school system. Specifically, the last two bulletins provided information and also pointed people to the safe return to instruction, serve continuity of learning plan, and a couple of other resources. So the bulletins of the 27th of August and the 31st described where, you know, what the new opening conditions are, what some of the considerations are, what the new quarantines are. These are things that were covered with the Board of Ed a couple of times, and we did in public session a couple of times. In addition to that, on the superintendent's site here, there's also a link for the COVID site itself, the community and parent guardian site where COVID reporting can be done, and various bits of information with respect to the pandemic will be posted throughout the year and the opening. So this is the TPS Pandemic Continuity of Learning site. This was, there have been resources in prior years that were similar to this. It's designed to make it very easy for a family to submit. So essentially, it puts all the options that were previously discussed in the board meetings with respect to, you know, alternative to in-person for those who qualify for such a thing, mask exemptions under accommodations in 504, and it explains when one clicks on these items, how to go about, you know, requesting or filing for an accommodation. So between those two superintendent bulletins that give a really comprehensive description of how things, you know, are in terms of rules, requirements, and what we have to do for the beginning of the year, that coupled with this site provide parent guardians the resources and the information they need to make some of the decisions with respect to, you know, their children and the pandemic. It also provides the reporting, the reporting link. People are familiar with this from last year, and we are right back in it right now. It's already been used by parent guardians starting a few days ago. And we've been processing and working through additional reports and COVID identifications. So far, none of these identifications have impacted our classes because they were prior to the beginning of school. But we've already had at least 5. So there's already been that happening. And again, it has not impacted kids in terms of quarantine. But we've been gearing up for that because we do expect that to happen soon, just with respect to the probability on it is pretty high. And you'll notice other districts have already done that. In fact, one district already went completely virtual. So we don't expect to do that, but and we do have an excellent system set up for processing and handling it, but it's coming, So this is the reporting area for parent guardians, and then it also provides in the same site in one place, the TPS return to in-person instruction continuity service plan. Now, remember that name is not mine. That is literally the thing we have to call it. The plan has to have that name, but that is also right there for parent guardians. So they have information about the alternative in person and the requirements necessary to do that, masking information, reporting COVID illnesses or impacts, and the TPS safe return to in-person instruction continuity of learning plan, and all the details that lie within that. And so I won't go through that whole plan. You're somewhat familiar with it already, and it has updates and so on. Similarly, there are other resources here in terms of technology resources, technical support for the Chromebooks, health information virtually, links, and the school meal program. The school meal program is also updated. There is no cost to Tolland families for meals again this year. That's part of the USDA program. So, parent guardians will not have to worry about sending in money for lunches or any of that. These are all provided at no cost to families.
Are you budgeting in if we have to add in the funds that we did for the workers? Because that still puts us down. What was the actual technical number?
Yeah, well, right.
It's on my agenda for
Yeah.
next week. right?
Okay.
Let's see.
I mean, the good news, yeah, the good news is that this year as long as we are in person, we're selling a la carte. A la carte is the thing that really balances the
The
budget.
cookies.
Cookies.
Yes. The shortened version of that is cookies. Essentially, cookies are very popular. Cookies help fund everything.
Cookies on the go.
So yeah, cookies on the go. So as long as we're in person, then they're selling the a la carte items. Those are something that
That will
is paid
help
for.
offset.
Right. So, we as long as we're not forced into a remote status again, we will probably be in a balanced budget with respect to the food service program. And the USDA is funding, those lunches, so more people may do lunch. So it actually may be more healthy from a financial standpoint because more people will take lunches because they don't have to pay for them. So that's a good thing. I expect at the end of this year, as long as we're not forced into a remote status, that we will actually be, in the green, so to speak. And so that's a good thing. We do not have, again, to clarify, as I have in the past, the Tolland Public Schools does not offer remote learning. If you're a student in special education, family that has a student in special education, you can go through the IEP PPT process to request the modifications, accommodations accordingly, as you would any other year. But if a student in the general education population can file for an alternative to in-person accommodation request under 504, and the process is illustrated here. But there's a fairly high level that one has to rise to in order to achieve that. And that is all articulated there. I won't belabor it, but both for that and masks, you can see there's a fairly high criteria for achieving something like that. And then there would be a meeting, there'd be paperwork required. If that did happen, it would be more like a online program with the assistance of an associate educator working in collaboration with a teacher. And it would be Edgenuity or something the child logs into, or there's content that they're accessing on Classroom, but it's not in perpetuity. It's not meant to be long-term, and it is not synchronous logging into the classroom from the beginning of the day to the end. It does not look like that. That's why I've taken the terminology of remote instruction out. We offer an alternative to in-person, not remote learning. And the state of Connecticut is not going to define remote learning until January of 2022. And then state of Connecticut is supposed to offer an option from 22-23, starting 22-23. So until we know what they're calling it and why and who they're expecting to pay for it and all that, we may not want to be using the exact same terminology. So that's how this all kind of works. Right now, we have had a good start. You know, the COVID update, again, we've had about 5 impacts so far of positives. And all systems are ready to handle that. Everybody's been prepped and, you know, staff know what they need to do. One reiteration on the staff side, all staff as of Executive Order 13B must be vaccinated or subject themselves to weekly testing. So the system is adjusted to make that possible. There is also a site for staff where they report their vaccination status. We also use a thing called CT Wiz to confirm the proof of that status. And so they fall into 2 categories essentially as of September 27th. They're either vaccinated or they're subjecting themselves to weekly COVID testing. There is a process and form set up for them to submit their results by midnight Friday every week. If those results are not submitted at that time, there is a friendly outreach the first time, followed by escalating measures to assure that compliance is received, because compliance is demanded under 13B, the law. So, so that process and that that scaffolding has been set up too. There's been more setup this year, and there's more tracking this year than there was last year. There's more things that have to be managed. There's more aspects to this. And as you know, quarantine situations have changed and kids can come back after 8 days, but these are all things I've covered before, so I won't say them again. Just these are all factors.
Yeah, we want to keep everybody lively. Any board members have any questions? Go ahead, Griffin.
I just had a quick question under reporting. What is the quarantine due to travel to a red state on the Connecticut travel advisory? Is that new?
Oh, that would be basically, they update their status all the time. So the link to this, the travel advisory stuff, is simply if it changes, when you click on it, if you have to start reporting again, then you have to report to this forum. Right now, people who are traveling don't have to report to that forum. But when they do, it's going to be a red state they're usually reporting from. Right now, they don't have to.
Okay.
Go ahead, Court.
I was just wondering, what happens if, God forbid, like what happened in Hebron, you know, they shut down the school already, you know, after a couple weeks. What happens if we need to do that? Are we prepared to, are we even allowed to do alternative to in-person learning for?
The only time we would return to last year's model of remote is if, because of the conditions of the COVID pandemic, we were forced to shut the schools down again or shut a school down.
Okay.
We do not, do not expect to be in that condition. We do have a lot of structures here to prevent it. Again, knock on wood, like I hate saying this because it's Murphy's Law, but we have never yet in 18 months of the pandemic shut the school down. And I think that's because of how we handle it here aggressively. It takes a lot of work from a lot of people to do what we're doing, but because of that, we've managed to avoid it. The Delta variant would have to completely overwhelm us for that to be the case. And I don't expect that to happen. We have a lot of people who are vaccinated who will not be affected the way they would have been last year or even in the early part of the pandemic. So I don't expect us to have to shut down. If we did, we would have to go back to a model, but that model would be dictated once again by the state.
Thank you.
Madhu?
So you had mentioned that we don't offer remote learning right now, but you did mention alternative accommodations. Do you
Can you go into a little bit about what that is? So again, the criteria for such a thing is fairly high to reach. One would have to have, I was just trying to get me to verify that I meet.
Don't look, Tony.
Yes.
I don't know if I can-
Can't even get the Wi-Fi password
I
here.
believe in- Oh, great. So-
You know what? You can get back to me offline if you would like.
I'm trying to, so let me just do it.
It's in the plan.
So basically, it is in the plan, and essentially, one, and I'm gonna truncate this, a little bit, but one has to, kind of have medical documentation from a doctor, physician assistant, and so on, that states that it is not possible for this individual to safely attend school due to medical reasons, that it is actually not possible, and that child could suffer severe impacts from it. If that is met and the medical documentation is provided, which that form allows an upload of, a meeting is convened to consider a 504 accommodation for that child, in which case they would be given an alternative in-person program. So for instance, at the 6th through 12th grade level, we probably align them with an edgenuity program where there'd be courses that they would choose, online courses. They would be assisted by an associate educator under the leadership of a administrator or teacher leader, and they would take that coursework. So they would not be interacting with their classroom teachers. That would be almost a separate program. In the K-5 zone, they'd be interacting with the associate educator most often in coordination with the teacher, but they again would not be interacting with the classroom directly during the span of the day. It would be more with that, those personnel assigned to them. Under special education, that again would be handled through the IEP PPT process, in which case there would be special educators dedicated to that purpose. But it will not in any way resemble that remote learning from last year, where you log in at the 8 o'clock and you go all the way through whatever 2:30 was just sort of. It would be more of a separate program with assigned staff to assist.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Any other board members have any questions about this? If not, we'll move it on. Oh, everyone's gonna try to do two-step verification. He's
Now
focused.
I'm like locked up, and now it's opening the Weather Channel. There's actually no logic to what's happening here at all.
Okay, let's move on to the committee and liaison reports. Dana, I don't know if you would like to go first with the Birch Grove, because I know you always have something.
Hi, everybody. Yes, thank you, Ashley. Obviously, today was the first day of school. So it was a phenomenal effort by everybody to ensure that the school was open today. Mr. Swanson and the team did a fantastic job greeting our pre-K through second graders. I know that there was a tough bus situation today, but school is open. The biggest thing is we had a handful of change orders that we're continuing to do. D'Amato is still on site, wrapping up a few things. We have a few things that we tabled last night simply because just in case there's any last minute items that we need to target and really focus on that are of high priority. We're doing that. We did authorize the loading dock leveler last night. I know that it was presented to us at a $5,000 ticket with D'Amato, and this project, we were able to get it into the budget. It's like 88,000 and change. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact amount, but it is going into the BGP project, and it is reimbursable by the state. So we're able to get that in. There's a couple like onesie twosie little things. The portables are all gone, which is pretty fantastic. But for those of you who haven't had a chance to get into the building or see pictures, Dr. Willett posts a lot. But the TEPTO is, just a reminder, the TEPTO is sponsoring an event on the 18th from 10 to 2. And that's for every community member, every Tolland Public School, anybody that lives here in Tolland, and all of our educators in town to come one, come all. From what I understand, this is going to be as fantastic, if not better, as the Spring Fling. So there's been some phenomenal donors in town, small businesses, et cetera, who have donated to help the TEPTO get this event going. Again, if anything, if not anything, to come in and look at that school. Again, you know, seeing Mr. Swanson's face and Ms. Bugliatta's face and just those educators just so excited to be in. It's just a phenomenal thing for our community and just a win overall. And we had our last meeting, not last night's meeting, but the weekend before. We had the meeting actually on site where we were able to go on premises, and it was, you know, it's a sight to see. So if anybody can take the time out of your day on the 18th to please come, you won't be, you know, it'll be a phenomenal decision. It's going to be a great event for the community. That's what I have.
Great.
I don't know, somehow they didn't have one.
I will say there's no dunk tank from what I'm being told, and Dr. Willett is not coming in landing on a parachuting in, so we're devastated about that. But other than that, it's supposed to be great.
I'm not gonna go down that path. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess to Dana and to Dr. Willett, so when you mentioned the loading dock leveler, is that what we were talking about in FFC, Walt, as far as
That was one of the things we were talking
on our
about.
capital?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was, we also talked about additional things, talking about capital budget, because there's another thing coming up the pike with the fence gate as well. So we're trying to get as much as we can into this so that we don't have to have it on the capital budget. Again, we're down to the nitty gritty at this point, but yeah, so I think it was on the capital budget for $5,000, if I'm not mistaken. It's gonna be an $8,000 and change. Again, I don't have the exact amount to go into the BGP budget.
Okay.
But it is, so yeah, they're gonna make sure it gets done.
Perfect, thank you, Dana. Did you have a question or?
Yeah, real quick
go
one
ahead.
for Dana. So I know you mentioned they had, the building committee still has a few other things that it's wrapping up, but do you have an idea about when they'll be done? Like, obviously the school's open, but the committee work itself.
I've been told it's gonna be done when it's done. We're meeting every week right now. I think next week's at this point has been canceled just because we were trying to stay up on any last minute change orders. D'Amato is still on site simply because any of the little things that come up, we don't want to have to bring someone back on site because that would be an astronomical cost versus having people currently on site to finish up. But there will be, we have our meetings scheduled all the way through December. There will be, I mean, the playscape's probably not going to get installed until mid to end of November. I'm not the playscape, I apologize. The swing set probably won't be installed until mid to late November, simply because of when it was approved and supply and demand with that. But yeah, it will be brought to us as a building committee to sign off, and then it will be presented by Katie and myself and the building committee team for us as a Board of Ed to sign off, and then the town signs off. And once we all give our blessings at that point, it'll be closed. But it's just, to be honest with you, Jacob, it's onesie twosie things. It's furniture and fixtures that came in damaged that they're replacing, or things that misshipped and went, there was some stuff that went to Florida that was supposed to come here. So unfortunately with things like that, with everything, production being slow on a lot of ends, just those loose ends are just kind of tough to pull together. I know that there's a lot of furniture that arrived, I think just yesterday, Dr. Willett, before school opening. So there's going to be those. We're hopeful it'll wrap up soon, but again, I've been told it'll be over when it's over.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Sorry, as soon as you know, as soon as I know, you'll know.
Any other questions for her for the work crew? Okay, let's go to another committee. Jacob did the, well, no, Flora did the policy one last time because you met right before our meeting, so you already went to policies.
That was good for me.
FFC, you're not meeting until
Next week.
what about curriculum?
We're meeting October. And then mental health task force did not meet on Monday, obviously.
Because it was holiday. Okay.
So we're
And
meeting.
your next,
We're moving communications from Monday the 27th to Tuesday the 28th, just one time because of work conflicts.
Okay, so Tuesday, the
Same time,
28th will be the communication. Okay, so I think we're good. Is there anything I'm missing? Anyone? I think we're good. Okay. Chairperson report. I mean, honestly, I just wanted to just say how the students embarked on a new adventure today with new friends and teachers. And I'm sure they're probably gonna get a little bit better sleep tonight, knowing what they're going into. I mean, I know especially the little kindergartners, and it's a big step in their life. So, you know, I'm sure they're gonna get a little bit better sleep. The alarm clock is still gonna go off in the morning really early, especially for the high schoolers. That is something else to talk about, but, you know, so I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we reach out to the kids to make sure they're comfortable and they are ready for success for this year. It's really, they're our future and our future leaders, and we have to make sure that we're there for them, for the curriculum, all the different changes. I heard there was a lot of changes when I went to open house, by the way, Dr. Willett. So that's all I really have. Okay, board action, we do not have any tonight. Public participation at this time, I will open up for participation, and Dr. Willett, if you could find a timer if there are any hands. You just have to state your name and your address and go from there, and it has to be limited to what's on the agenda. So at this time, if any members of the public would like to speak, please raise your hand. Okay, going once, going twice. Well, let's continue on. Points of information, open it up to any board members for points of information. Everybody looks bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Anybody over here? Okay, so I will close that up. And so at this time, then, we will be entering into the executive session on the personnel matter of negotiations and inviting Dr. Willett, but we do have to make the motion, so I'll entertain the motion, and then we will.
Make the motion to enter into executive session to discuss personnel negotiations at 8:22 p.m., inviting Dr. Willett into said session.
Second.
Any discussion about that? We'll do a roll call vote. So Sophia?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
We do.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, Dana?
Aye.
And Reedy?
Aye.
Aye as well. Therefore, we will enter into executive session at 8:22, inviting Dr. Willett. Okay, so,
I will, do you want me to make a motion?
yes.
All right, I will make a motion to approve the changes to the superintendent's contract as specified in compensation proposal for TPS superintendent. Document provided to the Board of Education on September 8th, 2021 meeting, including the extension for the contractual agreement between the Board of Education and Superintendent Walter Will for 3 years from July 1st, 2021 through July 30th, 2024, and updating the superintendent's contract accordingly.
Second.
Any discussion? Anything that anybody wants to mention? No? Okay, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. So Sophia?
Aye.
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 Dana, you're up there. Let's just get you over here.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye as well, therefore passes unanimously. So at this time, you're stuck for another 3 years. You have your,
Deeply thankful for that, yeah, thank you.
okay, and so we do not have any future or new business, so I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
You ready to tell us? So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Dana,
Aye.
therefore we will adjourn at 9:51 tonight. Have a good night, everybody.